Construction safety is not a collection of ad hoc operational tasks, but a legally mandated, heavily documented life cycle process. It requires strict adherence to regulatory frameworks long before a single piece of heavy machinery arrives on site. Three distinct pillars mandate the management of health and safety in the United Kingdom. First, the moral expectation that workers return home in the same condition they arrived. Second, the strict legal frameworks that prosecute negligence. And third, the severe financial reality of site accidents. This diagram illustrates the safety iceberg, a model showing how the financial impact of an incident is distributed. The visible tip above the waterline represents the direct costs. These direct costs are the obvious, immediate financial hits. They include physical damage to buildings and equipment, alongside claims typically covered by employer and public liability insurance. But the true financial reality lies below the waterline. These are the uninsured, indirect costs: cumulative business loss, expensive reworks, mounting legal fees, recruitment costs to replace injured staff, and the permanent loss of commercial goodwill. The Health and Safety Executive, or HSE, holds statutory powers to enforce these standards. Inspectors can issue improvement notices to force compliance, or prohibition notices to immediately halt dangerous activities. A prohibition notice freezes a site instantly, triggering all of those massive indirect financial losses. To prevent these catastrophic failures, the UK enforces the Construction, Design and Management Regulations 2015, commonly known as CDM 2015. This specific legislation forms the backbone of the entire project lifecycle. The CDM 2015 lifecycle begins at the absolute origin point of liability, the client. The client is the individual or organization that commissions the work. Whether they are a commercial developer or a domestic homeowner, the client controls the budget, sets the schedule, and initiates the project. The client has a major legal obligation right at the start. For any project involving more than one contractor, they must formally appoint two critical duty holders before the construction phase begins. The first critical appointee is the principal designer. The principal designer holds the statutory role of planning, managing, and coordinating health and safety during the pre-construction phase. Their primary objective is to identify, eliminate, or control foreseeable risks directly within the design itself. The second appointee is the principal contractor. This organization is responsible for coordinating the actual physical build and managing site safety when multiple contractors are involved. Before work starts, these duty holders rely on a vital package of data known as pre-construction information. Pre-construction information contains the specific data required to work safely. This includes existing health and safety files, asbestos surveys, topographical data, and particularly on brownfield sites, the exact details of buried services. The law mandates a strict flow for this information. The client provides it, the principal designer consolidates and coordinates it, and it must ultimately reach the principal contractor to inform their site planning. The pre-construction phase revolves entirely around gathering this critical data and legally transferring risk management to competent parties before a single shovel hits the ground. Once appointed, the principal contractor assumes control. Their most critical pre-work documentation duty is drafting the Construction Phase Plan, or CCP. NEBOSH examiners are highly specific on this point. A construction phase plan is not a collection of generic risk assessments or standard safety method statements. It must be a completely bespoke document, tailored to the exact project. The law dictates the mandatory contents of the CPP. It must define project-specific site rules, induction procedures, arrangements for cooperation between contractors, and comprehensive welfare provisions. Crucially, the plan must include specific control measures for any work involving particular risks. Schedule 3 of CDM 2015 provides statutory examples of these particular risks. They include deep excavations with a risk of engulfment, the use of explosives, work near high-voltage power lines, and operations over or near water. The CPP must account for dynamic site assessment. Construction hazards change daily based on environmental and physical variables, and the plan must evolve to match them. This includes differentiating between occupied and unoccupied premises. A refurbishment project in occupied school or office requires strict physical isolation of the work zone from existing building occupants, alongside robust protection of fire escape routes. Brownfield redevelopments, sites previously used for commercial or industrial purposes, introduce their own unique hazards. These sites often harbor uncharted buried surfaces, heavy metal soil contamination, and volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, which are harmful gases emitted by specific chemicals. The dynamic risks are also human. Sites operate with transitory workforces, intense time pressures, and non-English-speaking migrant labor. Examiners expect you to outline practical controls for these human elements. This means utilizing visual aids, providing translated toolbox talks, installing multilingual signage, and delivering rigorous site inductions before anyone starts work. Environmental pressures also degrade safety culture. Strict client deadlines encourage dangerous shortcuts, while severe weather conditions, extreme heat, cold, and wind drastically increase worker fatigue and error rates. The construction phase plan cannot be a static document abandoned in a desk drawer. It is a living operational blueprint that must continuously adapt to control the dynamic, physical, and human variables of an active site. Moving from documentation to the physical perimeter, the principal contractor has a strict duty to enforce site order and security to protect both workers and the public. Required security controls include secure perimeter fencing, entirely separated pedestrian and vehicle routes, adequate lighting, CCTV systems, and anti-theft initiatives like plant watch schemes. Inside that perimeter, contractors execute one of the highest-risk engineering operations on any site, temporary works. Temporary works are the engineered structures required to enable the building of the permanent works. This includes access scaffolds, trench shoring, propping, and formwork. The critical industry rule here is uncompromising. Temporary works require the same rigorous level of structural design, testing, and care as the permanent building itself. This process is managed by a Temporary Works Coordinator, or TWC. They are responsible for overseeing the design, installation, checking, and dismantling of these structures in accordance with BS 5975, the British Standard for Temporary Works Management. Beyond engineering, the law demands strict attention to human sustenance through welfare arrangements, which are typically housed in temporary accommodation units. The legal baseline for sanitary conveniences is highly specific. They must be adequately numbered for the workforce, well lit, ventilated, and strictly separated by gender, unless they are housed in single, lockable rooms. Washing facilities have equally strict requirements. They must provide clean, hot, and cold running water, soap, and suitable means of drying, such as towels or electric dryers. Rest areas must be weatherproof and adequately heated. They require seating with backrests and must provide facilities to heat food and boil water. A common examiner trap scenario involves off-site facilities. Directing workers to use public cafes or off-site public toilets is a severe legal breach and an unacceptable long-term solution. On-site facilities are mandatory. These physical controls, from the integrity of the perimeter fence to the hot water in the welfare unit, are the measurable, prosecutable proof that the construction phase plan is actively functioning. As the construction phase concludes, it triggers the final documentary requirement under CDM 2015, the Health and Safety File. This file serves a primary, forward-looking purpose. It is a vital manual handed back to the client to ensure the safe maintenance, future renovation, or eventual demolition of the completed structure. You must understand what the Health and Safety File is not. It is not a historical diary of how the building was constructed, nor is it a collection of old contractor invoices or expired risk assessments. Its required contents include details of residual hazards, like encapsulated asbestos or contaminated land, structural load-bearing capacities, and the exact locations of buried utilities and fire safety systems. To pass Element 1, you must align your logic with the core expectations of the NEBOSH examiner. Examiner Rule 1. Never confuse duty holders. The client commissions the project, the principal designer coordinates the design risk, and the principal contractor controls the physical site. Examiner Rule 2. Never confuse the timeline of the three critical documents. Pre-construction information is what you start with, the construction phase plan is how you manage the build, and the health and safety file is what you leave behind. absolute precision in defining legal duties, combined with the ability to apply strict hazard, risk, and control logic to realistic construction scenarios, establishes the professional standard required to pass the NEBOSH Construction Certificate.